Hi everyone, I'm Brad Teplitsky. I'm here today with Fon Davis and William Loughboro, otherwise known as Glen. And we're here to talk about the late Greg Jein and commemorate his memory.
I think Star Trek has a lot to do with how we met, because I think we all got together at the early Star Trek conventions in the 70s. We all wanted to get into filmmaking, and it just kind of naturally kind of gelled together. And end up, I went a different path than Greg. Greg stayed with props and miniatures, and I went into television. But that's kind of how it started, and we owe it all to Star Trek.
Fon, so what do you do?
I do miniature visual effects, special effects for motion pictures and television. I run Fonco Studios, and I used to work for Disney in stop motion as well as in computer animation. And then more well-known as Industrial Light and Magic's model shop. I was there for about 10 years.
I think I've heard of them.
Yeah.
ILM. Greg, he passed away last May.
It was a shock to everybody. Well, we knew how he was ill, but it's still, you can't get used to it. You know, he left a gaping hole, I mean, in life. He really did. And I have other mutual friends with him, but they still can't believe it. They think about him every day.
So tell me, Fon, about when you first heard the name Greg Jein.
Yeah, for me, Greg Jein was kind of a role model for me as a very young child. Because I grew up, I saw Star Wars like a lot of people at age 7, and I saw behind the scenes books, and I started buying Cinefex magazine and just eating up all the behind the scenes stuff. And I saw Greg Jein along with Izo Young and Larry Tan. They were the 3 Asian model makers. And growing up Asian in America and wanting to be a model maker, it was very important for me to be able to see them doing it and just made it feel a little more possible.
Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
I did. I'd already met Larry Tan and Izo Young. He was the only one I hadn't met in the out of the 3. My career was mostly based in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I didn't really have an opportunity to meet with him. But we were working on Christmas Carol with Image Movers Digital, and we were shooting at the Beatrice studio here in Los Angeles. And we would be down every few weeks. And one day, a friend of mine, John Goodson, said he couldn't go out to dinner with us that night because he was meeting with his friend Greg Jein. And I said, oh, so you mean we're going to see your friend Greg Jein? And I just invited myself to dinner because I really wanted to meet him, and I wanted to thank him for being a role model to me. Tell him the way I was able to tell the other 2 guys, you know, how much that meant to me to see him in those magazines. And so yeah, I had dinner with him that night. We became friends, and you know, not close, you know, see him all the time. I didn't get a chance to work with him, unfortunately, but I could call him anytime.
And what was that dinner like with your mentor, for lack of a better word?
It was great and awkward, the way it often is when you meet someone who has that kind of, mostly, I mean, not for me. I had a very easy time talking about how I followed his career and how much that meant to me. It's usually more difficult to hear that at the other end. He's very humble.
He was very unassuming, right?
Yeah. And so he was like, wow, okay. You know, I don't think he knew how to take it exactly. And that was the awkward part. But he was very nice and just very kind of welcoming personality in the way he spoke with me from there forward, really. And I got on his coveted Christmas.
Oh, did you? Were you on that as well?
Christmas card list, so I'd get the pinups every year with the robots.
Yeah,
Wasn't just a robot on those cards.
Oh, I know.
Let's not go there. That's true. Yeah, he was a very kind person, very helpful. What was the deal with not having a phone or a computer, a cell phone? What was that
The
about?
ultimate Luddite. I mean, he just didn't care for computer. They bought him computers. Everybody was giving him one, and he just didn't care for it. He had his regular TV and a DVD player, and no cable,
No Netflix.
no Netflix, nothing. He just would look at. I'd give him DVDs. He just watched DVDs, Blu-rays.
So how did you get in touch with him, Fon?
I had to call him.
You had to call him.
Like on his house phone, right?
I couldn't email him. I couldn't text him. I couldn't do any of those kinds of things.
Well, he did have an assistant you could email. I used to send stuff to his assistant.
Susan?
Yeah, I used to send it to her, and she'd take it over because there were just some things you just had to do. But he didn't want to deal with it. No.
Were there any of his films that you remember that he worked on that you said, wow? Or
Oh man, I think the Star Trek stuff. Saw a lot of pictures of him working on Star Trek.
He worked with John Carpenter and Dan O'Bannon and all those guys and Bill Taylor. Because I remember I saw the Dark Star ship being made, which he still had. And then he got into Buckaroo Banzai, because I think that might be his first real big movie that he got involved in. And it just stepped up from there. And he met Douglas Trumbull, was close friends with him, and Trumbull would send work his way constantly. You know, and that's how he got Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, yeah?
And a lot of other
he
stuff.
was nominated for that.
Yeah, he was. Nominated for 1941, too, which was the biggest circus party you ever saw in your life. You know, I mean, it was a blast. I mean, Spielberg shot more stuff, and it just went on and on and on, and nobody wanted it to stop because everybody was having fun. And, you know, there was lots of pressure, but, you know, it's all, you know, people did their thing. And so I was there for a lot. I watched a lot of that being done. And
Did you watch the Oscars in memoriam this year? They mentioned Greg.
Yeah, I thought that was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, there's word his ashes are supposed to be sent up on a space mission here pretty soon.
Oh, really?
That's what I heard, that they got him and maybe Roddenberry's or somebody else. from Star Trek.
Michelle's Nichols,
Maybe it's her.
my partner Sky in the auction, I think, arranged for hers to go up
Then that's
beginning
the one.
of June.
Then that's it.
So
He's
maybe
going
Greg's
too.
going up with Michelle
Yeah,
Nichols.
so he's going up in space finally.
Did he ever give you any advice at all? Did you ever ask him for advice?
You know, by the time I finally met him, my career was pretty well established.
Yeah.
So what really meant a lot to me was just being able to see him, you know, doing his magic in all these magazines and stuff, and then obviously getting a chance to meet him. We were both pretty well established in the industry, and you know, it's interesting. I don't know how I didn't end up working with him, because I ended up working with a lot of people who did work with him, and I'd hear about him all the
And
time.
what did they say?
so-
What would people say about
Oh,
Greg?
he was just chill, and he was really good at his job. You know, he was always the last to leave. He loved his work.
Sometimes when I mention to people that I knew Greg or was friends with him, they're, wow, you knew Greg Jein. And the last lunch I had with Greg was March or February of 2022. He picked up the check, actually. I remember that. And but before that, a couple of people went up to him. I forget who they were, and they were fans. And it felt like, you know, I was with a celebrity.
I'm more on that side. He was definitely a celebrity for me
Yeah.
growing up. Yeah.